I would like to introduce James Saperstein with First Wave.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our presentation. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about First Wave BioPharma today. We have several products, but I'm going to focus on one or two. We're a clinical stage gastroenterology company based in Florida, and we just merged with another company called Immunogenics to gain their product, latiglutenase. So I'll go through that. Let's see. Okay, this clicker isn't working. Let's do it this way. Okay, so this is a normal company disclaimer statement. You might hear some things that aren't public, but you probably won't. But if you ask me things that are non-public, I probably won't answer. So why did we look at Immunogenics? Basically, it was a really good business combination for us. I actually had let go of my clinical team. So First Wave, Immunogenics had a clinical team that we can bring in, and they had been out for a very long time. Just to kind of give you their history, the drug was with another company called Alvine. Alvine was funded by several large VCs, including corporate venture of AbbVie, and they went through about 9 years of development, the preclinical all the way into phase 2, and then they had to hit 3 clinical endpoints, and I'll get to those in a few minutes, and they missed one of those clinical endpoints. So the company went under. The founder of the discoverer of the product, Chain Khosla, is at Stanford. He took the asset back and sold it to a guy who started Immunogenics, and for the last 7 or 8 years, they've done a couple of things that have been very important. I'll talk about that in a minute. But mostly they've been accumulating debt. So they haven't been able to raise any capital. So we went in, we swooped in. We saw this asset as something that was really good for us. We did the transaction, 100% equity transaction. Obviously, because they were phase 3 ready, they had a better valuation than we did. And the second thing there after the transaction, which is really important, the gentleman over there asked me about this before. Can I talk about the strategic transaction that we have? So we have a non-binding LOI. What does that mean? It can turn into an LOI once we finish our manufacturing plan. I'm actually going to Italy on Monday to meet with our manufacturers to make sure that we've got all the plans baked in. So this company, which is a pretty large pharmaceutical company, would give us $20 million in non-dilutive capital. They just want U.S. rights. They want U.S., Canadian rights, Central America, and some very small countries in Europe. The question becomes, do we take it? Do we take the $20 million, or can I raise capital elsewhere? So right now we're focused on raising capital elsewhere, even though the deal from this company is worth in excess of $1 billion, just for a couple of territories. But the investors who we're talking to right now, which are large institutional investors, they believe that they can do better. So who am I to argue? These guys have been very successful. So you see, this has been the integration of our management teams below. And these are our 4 products. Bottoms up, I'm only going to talk about 2 of them, really. Niclosamide, we're actually going to sell it. So we have a contract for out-licensing. That product I acquired several years ago, but the trials are just too expensive. It doesn't make any sense for us right now. Adrulipase, which was our lead asset for many, many years, dating back to 2014, we had a mixed result in our last study. We're still doing that work to make sure that we can straighten that out. And then capeserod I acquired last year as a backup to latiglutenase, because latiglutenase, the deal was taking a very long time. And capeserod, we licensed it in from Sanofi. It's an old drug that was looked at for Alzheimer's disease, and we're going to study it in gastroparesis. And then latiglutenase really is for celiac disease. It's targeting, quality of life improvements, but also one other clinical endpoint that I'll show you in a minute. This is our team. This is part of our team. We've kind of grew it out a little bit, so there's an old slide. But just to give you my background, I've been doing this for over 40 years. 3 big pharma companies, Lilly, Hoffmann Roche, Bristol Myers Squibb. My last role at BMS, I was the head of global infectious diseases, covering the world. And I've been part of 23 drug launches. I've led 6 of them, so I know a little bit about commercialization. And then I went small. I went to this tiny little company up there that no one ever heard of at the time called Gilead. In fact, our logo, we had a different logo than this current logo back then. And then I went to Serono. So I was running the U.S. group in Serono, reporting into Switzerland. And then I went smaller again. I founded a company called Therapeutics with Domain. We sold it to Allergan for $1.7 billion. And then this is my 3rd company after that. So the 2nd company, we sold part of it to Celgene. 3rd company failed. So, you'll have your successes, you have your failures. That one failed. But I'm learning from those failures. So this company I took over, it was called AzRx, and we changed its name later. So this is where we are in development. If you look 2024, looks like a blank slate, but we're doing a lot of work. We're doing a lot of manufacturing work. We're doing a lot of regulatory work to get ourselves ready. We intend to be in the clinic in 2025 with latiglutenase, 2 studies. I'll talk about that in a minute. But adrulipase is kind of stuck at phase 2B. We need to move it forward soon. And capeserod, we should be able to go into phase 2 for gastroparesis. So let's talk a little bit about latiglutenase. So by show of hands, does anyone know anyone with celiac disease? A couple, right? So it's 1% of the U.S. population, and it's a little higher than that in Europe. So you're looking at approximately 3.5 million patients in the United States, and probably 4.5 in Europe. The problem with these numbers is that 40% of all celiac patients go undiagnosed. So that we know, and that comes from all the foundations. So we believe, and we're first in line. There aren't any other products back there. I don't have a slide on this, but I'll just mention Takeda, Provention, that was acquired by Sanofi. They have celiac drugs. Takeda just put theirs on the shelf. Not sure why, but they put it on the shelves. And Provention, I happen to know the guy, the old CEO and CSO that sold it to Sanofi. They're both very good friends of mine. They don't think Provention or Sanofi is going to do anything with their celiac either. They've got other products that they acquired the company for. So we've got at least a 2.5 to 3 year lead on anybody that's coming in behind us. As I said, we had compelling endpoint data at phase 2. So what Immunogenics did really well is they hired the ex-director of the gastroenterological division of the FDA, who knew everyone at the FDA. They went back, they challenged the data, and instead of 3 clinical endpoints that they needed to hit, they flipped it. The FDA did, and flipped it to 2 clinical endpoints, which I have a slide on that. So those 2 clinical endpoints, the company has already hit 4 times, 4 different studies in phase 2. So we're comfortable. We're able to go into phase 3 with these 2 clinical endpoints. Okay, let me just keep moving. So what is celiac disease? It's chronic, debilitating gastrointestinal problems. The problem for the only treatment right now is gluten-free diets. And even then, there's a lot of cross-contamination. You can go into a restaurant that says, oh, gluten-free, but there's cross-contaminations with plates, with pots and pans. So people do get sick. So a lot of people who are true celiacs bring their own food into these restaurants. It's chronic, it's debilitating. Even you get these little microparticles that evolve, but our drug even kills off those microparticles. And patients live in constant fear that a trace of gluten could trigger something, a bad outcome for them. So latiglutenase is really an oral biological enzyme made from E. coli. It's actually 2 enzymes that we put together. For those of you who've got gray hair, you'll remember pixie sticks. So it's really the format that it comes in. It's like a little, it's not paper, but it's a little aluminum tube, about this big. It's about as wide as a pixie stick, and you have powder in it. You take the powder, you put it into water. We have 2 different flavors right now. As you start eating your food, you drink the water, or you drink the medication. We can do it 3-4 times a day. It's fairly safe. We've had a lot of safety data. So these 2 recombinant gluten-specific enzymes, they're proteases. They work together to break down the gluten particle. It's safe. It's non-systemic. What does that mean? It doesn't go into your blood. You basically poop it out. So it's safe. And we have experience in this because I mentioned adrulipase before. That's also an enzyme. And it's also non-systemic. And we have a brand new formulation where we were able to reduce our cost of goods by 86%. So we're very confident that we can do this as well. So basically what we're looking at now is really symptom relief for seroactive patients. Seroactive patients, you can actually measure in, using some blood tests, how much celiac they have. So when you're looking at the program, these are the market shares we think we can get for seroactive patients. But from an IP perspective, we have fairly strong IP, and then we have an additional 12 years of biological exclusivity from the U.S. and 10 years in Europe. It won't, right. Whatever you could eat, you could have a beer, you could have a pizza. It's usually rye, barley, and wheat. So anything that's made from those three grains, you need gluten. Mm-hmm. Right. So this kills even the microparticles. There'll be no effect at all. Well, let's talk about that, right? So the FDA recommends symptom reduction and histological non-worsening. What does that mean? So in your intestines, you've got these little hairs called villi. And if you think about it, when you eat food, it gets crushed up in the stomach by the stomach acid, and it gets put into liquid form and goes into your small intestine, and you have a different pH in your intestine. The villi, these little hairs that absorb all the nutrients that you need. So the majority of nutrients that you absorb when you eat food, you absorb it in the small intestine, not in the stomach. It's only a very small amount. So if you see these numbers here, the seroactive patients, what does this mean? VH means villi height. So normal villi about 5 micrometers, and celiac patients are really cut in half. They're 2.5 or less. So what failed the first time with the FDA? The FDA wanted to see improvement. They actually wanted to see growth of the villi. So going back from 1.5 or 1.7 to 2.5 to 3. They did not hit that. What they did hit is non-worsening, meaning that the villi stayed the same, and it's done by biopsy. So if you get a biopsy and the villi length of 2.5 milligrams before the study starts, and it's 2.5 milligrams when the study ends, you've done non-worsening. That's what they call it. They want to make sure it's non-worsening. The big indication is to stop all these GI-related events, abdominal pain, bloating, nausea. There's all sorts of composite scores that are put together. One of the other parts of our company that you should know is we acquired a laboratory where Jennifer Volksner, who is our head of R&D, she's working on a diagnostic. There is no diagnostic for celiac disease. You can't go and get a blood test and they'll tell you, oh, you've got celiac. The only way to test it if you have celiac is to give you gluten, and then you explode, you bloat, a lot of things happen. So we're going in with 2 cohorts, a placebo and 1,200 milligrams. We don't want to do a third dose. Originally, when I bought the company, they had a third dose, 600 milligrams. Got into a lot of arguments with these guys, but I want to make sure it works. So I'm a commercial guy. You don't want to put out a dose there that there's a chance it might not work. 1,200 milligrams is going to work, and we have enough safety data to stratify all of that. Total number of patients we're looking at is anywhere from 640 to 800 patients. Cost of the trial, all in with manufacturing, is about $85 million. Yes. Right, 1,200 million. And no side effects at all. We haven't seen, in all the studies, we have not seen one side effect. But if you want to talk about the market, let's talk about that before I go to capeserod. So the large pharma company, and I should say, I can't mention their name, but they're a gastroenterology company. They have a division. I don't think they're looking at this drug just for celiac disease. I think they're looking at this as a lifestyle drug. If you think about all those supermarkets with all these gluten-free aisles, and there's so many people, yeah, the GLP-1s now that are out there, they're going to cut down, and so that's the new diet fad. But before that, people don't want to eat gluten because they don't want to gain weight. So some people will try it because it's safe, and I believe this company will introduce it as a pharmaceutical and then transition that to an over-the-counter medication. That's the way I see it happening. No. People don't eat wheat products because it's carbs. So but it's a fallacy, right? It's not. If you exercise, there's no reason. I ate carbs this morning just because, and I needed to wake up. So sometimes your body needs carbs. So it's a fallacy. But when you're talking about lifestyle drugs, people like Ozempic is a lifestyle drug now. Trust me, that's not the intent of any of these GLP-1s. They're intended for diabetes. And now there's shortages all over the country because you can't get it because people are taking it to lose weight. So that's kind of the future of pharmaceuticals, is just moving things into lifestyle, as long as it's not toxic. Think about some of the drugs that all of you take: Advil, Motrin, Tylenol. These drugs were all prescription at one point, and then eventually went over the counter. Okay, so time I have left. So capeserod. I'll say it slow. It's a selective 5-HT4 partial agonist small molecule. Sanofi was studying it in Alzheimer's disease. They've had over 600 patients in the database. Sanofi changed management. They decided they didn't want to do this anymore with Alzheimer's, so they put it through an AI program, and this artificial intelligence program said this would work in gastroenterology. They put the product out for bid. We won the bid, and there were two indications. One was pediatric ulcerative colitis, and the other one was gastroparesis. So you heard me just talk about Ozempic and all these drugs. The leading side effect of all these drugs is gastroparesis. So we're looking to develop something to treat a side effect. But gastroparesis is also its own disease. Basically, you can't absorb food, or you bloat, and a lot of diabetics suffer from gastroparesis. There's absolutely no drugs out there for gastroparesis. We hope to be the first. And then I'll touch upon, because I do have some time, I'll touch upon adrulipase, even though I said I wouldn't. This is our legacy product. It's for exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. We're studying in cystic fibrosis patients. What people don't know about cystic fibrosis patients is a lot. Everyone thinks about cystic fibrosis as patients with pulmonary diseases. That's only half of it. Most cystic fibrosis is males are infertile. They also suffer from, 20 to 30% of them suffer from GI. They can't absorb nutrients at all. They're missing three main enzymes: protease, amylase, and lipase. So we're a lipase. The products that are out there right now are the crushed pig pancreases, and the leading seller is AbbVie. AbbVie sells about 1.4 billion a year. Cash cow for them, no pun intended. We're a little different. So for those are called porcine-derived pancreatic enzymes. So there's about 6 of them on the market. They're very tough to get onto the market because of the purification issues that the FDA wants you to have. So you really just have fairly large pharmaceutical companies that do this. Our drug is made from recombinant yeast, and we have no real adverse events, no fibrosing colonopathy, no porcine allergies. But more importantly, I should tell you, I'm a pharmacist, so compliance is really important to me. The expected dose for adrulipase, as you see on the chart on the right, number one, it's a smaller capsule, but we've already proven you can get away with 5 to 8 capsules a day, as opposed to 25 to 40 capsules a day. Imagine if you're a 10-year-old kid, every time you have a meal, you've got to swallow 15, 20 capsules, along with that, plus your other medicines that you have to take. So what happens is a lot of these kids, they just stop taking it. especially when they become teenagers, so they become non-compliant. So then you get what's called resistance, and by the time they need to catch up, they're taking 35, 40, 50 capsules a day. So in conclusion, we have these 4 assets, as I said. Celiac, we have to start our manufacturing run. We hope to get that moving next week. Believe it or not, it takes us about a year to build all the manufacturing for the clinical trial. So, and I'm out raising capital at this point with these PIPE investors, and hopefully May 28th, I'm hoping is a deadline. So since you're staring at me, that's the goal. Okay, I'll stop there for any questions that anybody might have. Absolutely. As I said, 40% of celiac patients are undiagnosed, and there's different degrees of celiac disease, right? So some people have real problems, and some don't. Some it's occasional. You know, people like to equate this to lactate, you know, the supplement that's given out if people are lactose intolerant. Even lactose intolerance, there's a certain degree of lactose intolerance. Some people, you know, can eat, like I've got an Italian friend that eats all the mozzarella cheese he wants, but you give him Swiss cheese, he's in the bathroom. So it really depends on the type of cheese you eat when you're lactose intolerant. Same thing will be with these patients. We kill off the little microns, you know, little small particles of gluten. So someone may try to eat a gluten-free meal, but they still have a little bit of gluten floating around, and this will take care of it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. I agree. We're hoping we can put it into the trial. We're not sure it's going to get finished that quickly, but we're looking at a myriad of different diagnostics that could be used. That, you know, hopefully a blood test that we can sell to pick a lab, you know, LabCorp or Quest or something like that. But we'd like to develop a companion just for this drug as well. That's what we're doing right now. There's actually 4 biomarkers that the FDA has agreed to that we can utilize, and that's where we're using to get patients in. They have to all be positive for those 4 biomarkers. Mm-hmm. Somebody said, "Oh, who's going to block my, you know, my stomach's upset. Eat this." I think people always would rather see something that's FDA approved before it goes over the counter. Well, part of it's patent protection. I mean, you want to put a drug out there that you can protect, and you don't have anybody violating your patents. If you put things out in a general food store, yeah, but you put it in a general food store, it's going to get violated. You want to brand it. You want to make sure you have this correct. Am I out of time? I'm out of time. All right. Thank you, everybody.